My name is William Norman Ligon. I'm an attorney, and I live in Gallatin, Tennessee. I was an undergraduate here from 1970 to 1974, and I attended law school here from 1976 to 1979.
What activities did you participate in while at Vanderbilt?
I played varsity basketball from 71 to 74, and I was member of the basketball coaching staff. I was grad student assistant from 76 to 78.
Relative to the whole spectrum of black basketball players, where do you fall in that number?
I'm the third to sign and the second to play. Perry Wallace and Godfrey Dillard came in 66. Godfrey left in like 68. Perry finished in 70, and Perry recruited me. I came in 70. And I played, I probably have the distinction of being the only black basketball player in this league that never had a black teammate. Everybody else at one time or another, someone else joined the team to play with them. I was the only one. We didn't have anybody else. My whole 4 years, I was the only black teammate on the team.
How would you describe the racial atmosphere of Vanderbilt when you were here as a student?
It was, I didn't particularly think it was all that bad because this was not a Southern university. This was a university where all the white kids that couldn't get into Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, they came here. Their folks either knew someone here or knew someone down this way. So I didn't meet anybody from the South until I was about a junior.
Really? And
so we really didn't have a lot of animosity here because you had to, I mean, they had the Southern fraternity tradition, which we were not interested in. They weren't interested in us either. So when Rush came, you didn't have to worry about that. It was not a Southern university. I traveled all the rest of the schools in this league, Mississippi State, and they were like night and day different than Vanderbilt. And so this was not a real place that had a lot of racial animosity. The numbers were not good for us in the first place. It was kind of like I wasn't growing up in my hometown. They keep asking me, "Did you ever have any problems in Gallatin?" I said, "No, when the ratio is 100 to 1, you don't run into problems." So I didn't really notice any racial animus here because of the numbers and where everybody was from. You know, I had 3 teammates from this state, and they were two from Nashville, and one was from Columbia, and one was from Memphis. And so that was pretty much it. Everybody else was from Illinois, Indiana, California, someplace like that. So it was not a Southern school. I didn't see it as a Southern school.
Would you say the racial atmosphere was the same when you came, what, 3 years later or 6 years later in grad school?
It started to change, but grad school is competitive. And undergrad is not competitive. Like I used to tell people all along, as long as you weren't trying to get in the frat house, trying to date Buffy or whatever her name was, or trying to get the job with so-and-so's daddy, you would have any problems. Grad school was a lot different because what I noticed then, we had a lot more Southern students at law school as opposed to being an undergrad. And because we were all grown and had our attitudes already formed, it became very competitive. As it became competitive, people used every advantage that they had. And I noticed that race was an advantage that these people used to use all the time. We used to call us affirmative action babies. That's what we were as a law school. Yeah. I know you have no business being here. You're just here because of affirmative action. And that used to be something we used to hear all the time at the law school.
Where did you go on campus when you wanted to see people who looked like you?
Fisk and Tennessee State.
So nowhere.
We had where there is now the the Stadium Club. There used to be a house there, we called it the Afro House. And we used to have Thursday night drunk night, which was the only night that these arrogant people would go down and admit that they were not doing well in school. You had to get them like 3 bottles of wine, and eventually you see somebody sitting in the corner saying, "What's the problem?" "I'm flunking out." I mean, you saw them in the daytime, and no one would admit that they were doing bad. After 3 or 4 hits of that wine, or something like Akadam, what were you drinking? Wild Irish Rose. You get them some wine, and then they'd sit down in the corner and tear up, and you sit there and go, "What's wrong with you?" And they say, "I'm not gonna make it. I just can't make it." And they went back, and that's the only time you would find them because the facade was, we're all great students, we're all doing well, I'm not having a problem, and literally I never knew who was around until Thursday night. We had Afro-American meetings every Thursday night, and then afterwards, everybody would just kind of drink and dance and have a good time. And everybody would let their hair out, and people would come up to you and tell you, I don't have a clue about what's going on in English 99, you know, and that's the remedial course, so I'm in trouble. You know. But when we wanted to go elsewhere, this is why we all picked this place. It was because of the University Center. I went to pre-college at Fisk. From sophomore, junior, senior year. I was very familiar with Fisk. All my classmates went to Tennessee State. So when I wanted to go see somebody, I just buzzed them up, got on the car, went across town and went to see some of them. The students here were kind of uptight because of what they perceived to be a lot of animosity. I noticed, see, I went to a segregated high school. My background had nothing to do with white people. So I had no baggage when I got here. It didn't bother me that they didn't talk to me. I didn't know anybody who talked to me when I came, where I come from. But I noticed a lot of my classmates and people who went to school with me had a lot of problems. They had been cheerleaders and they couldn't be cheerleaders. They had been in the band and the Walking 25 was not doing all that good. And that's what I call the band, the Walking 25. They didn't do all that hot. So they were not as intimately involved in this university as they had been at their high school. Some of them gone to great private schools and hadn't been in, and couldn't get integrated into this thing as well as people like me and Walter. We going to black schools. We were used to being in everything, and it didn't really make us any difference. We just kind of show up, and you know, it'd take them like, we go to 3 parties before somebody say, you know, y'all really not supposed to be here. Hey, we've been coming, you know, every weekend. We're gonna keep on coming, and you know, what you gonna do? Put us out, you know? But it was difficult for some of those students, I could tell. And so literally, when I wanted to see some comfortable black folks, I went across town. It was just easy. But because there was no other social activities catering to blacks, you had to go to Afro House. So you went, you know, and you had to go, you know, when you was having problems with your girlfriend, you had problems with your basketball game, you had to go, you had to show up. And you got stripped bare at the Afro House because if somebody had a beef against you, you couldn't get away from them with like 50 of us here. There was going to be somebody in your face all the time saying, look, what are you going to do about this? We actually went to the bus stop once to get a guy who was leaving. He was going to leave Vanderbilt. He was from Lawton, Oklahoma. His name was Ron Ballard. He ended up leaving the next year, but his freshman year, we heard he was not happy. He and I were good friends, and I took him home with me my freshman year because I know used to him going to Oklahoma. By the time he got there, it was time to come back, so I took him with me. And I remember us going to the bus stop, going into the Greyhound station, and snatching his trunk off the bus and put him back in the Volkswagen, David Smith's Volkswagen, and brought him back to campus. And he said, why'd you do that? And we told him, it ain't the same place without you. My experience means you got to stay here. We tight. I mean, if you leave, what's going to happen to me? You know, it's something. I need you here to watch my back, and that's the kind of attitude that we had at that particular time. Everybody was very much important because they were important. That was your family. That's all you had was those other black students.
Can you recall any instances of racism, either blatant or covert, during your times here at Vanderbilt?
Well, every now and then. I remember once we were in a freshman dorm, and I remember some guy yelled "nigger" out the window. And if you know where down there, where the freshman dorm is now, where what is it now? It's Dyer Hall, all those places. I was in Dyer Hall. I was the only black in Dyer Hall. I was on the top floor in the corner. They told us that the corner rooms were bigger. We were stupid enough to believe this, but I was there. Walter Overton was in one dorm. Doug Nelson in the other dorm. They were in the same dorm. Me, and there was maybe one more guy named Larry Wooten, who's dead now. Dr. Wooten. He was there. About 4 of us in that whole quadrangle. And me and Walter and Doug were coming from somewhere, and somebody called out the N-word. So we decided we were going to go up there and get this person. Had no idea who it was. Didn't have any idea where this could have come from, any one of those 800 rooms down there. So we decided we're going to run up the steps and we're going to kick this person's butt, and we get all the way up the top of the thing and run into one of the football players who was an RA, a guy named Noel Stahl. I know him real well today. He's a lawyer, and I laugh about this all the time. And Noel was a big, huge guy. He said, what's the problem? And we forgot instantly, as soon as we ran into Noel, what the problem was. He said, nothing, we thought this was our dawn, we're gonna go back down here. And literally, you didn't hear it much, unless you were someplace that they didn't want you to be. And that really wasn't all that much of a deal. You gotta understand, in the 70s, this was the love child era, so everybody was either whacked on pot all the time. I mean, we had some people who I never saw straight in the whole time they were here. And they were having, they had other things to do, so we didn't really run into a whole lot of problems because as athletes, we were kind of stars. And everybody knew who you were because all you had to do was go to one game. We had three football players and me. So that was the whole black athletic deal. So people who knew pretty much who you were. So we really didn't run into a lot of problems. I didn't run into a lot. And I don't think Walter and them did much either, but I do remember that one incident. And that made me realize, going up those steps, I kept thinking, because Walt and Doug were, they were football players, and these boys, they would go get us. I was thinking on the way up, who the hell are we going to kick? Where is this person? Because was he talking to us? I'm trying to figure this out. We're going up to 4 flights of steps. We're running up the steps, and every time we get to my mind is not on this deal anymore. I keep saying, we need to get out of here. This is not cool. We don't know who we're going after. And then I realized how futile it was going to be to stay here for 4 years and react to stuff like that because it could come from anywhere. And so we kind of steeled ourselves to that, to realizing that the numbers were not good for us to be able to deal with, with blatant and overt racism. It was just going to be real difficult to do. We just have to just swallow it and keep on going.